Well, hello and welcome again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me from. Welcome. Hope you're ready for another great session. We've had some technical issues, so I'm hoping everything settles down and lets us run this unhindered this morning. So thanks for joining. Let me just make sure we have thumbs up. Say hello in the chat if you could, please, just so that I know that everything is working properly. Right, so great, looks good. It's all looking promising. Thank you for joining again. Very excited. Before we get into today's topic, which is really a very exciting topic, I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. The transformation behavior process. So we'll dive into that. As usual, just a quick reminder this is all from the book, and we continue to evolve. There's over 15 years worth of research and content that's been collected and placed in here under 196 different situations ready for you to use. You can just look them up. They're broken up into 4 parts. We're actually running a chapter from part 4 of the book. So I'm in the last part of the book. And if you have missed it and want to catch up on any of those, you can always jump on to the events page. Okay, so the events page got all our historical recordings, and we're soon moving all of that over into our course platform so that you can actually join the workshops and work through the pieces together. The book, as I mentioned, is really 4 parts, and we've launched Lisa a few weeks back in January 2026. We launched Lisa, which was really the first piece, the calibrate part from the book. So if you like, the book has the 4 parts. Your self-awareness, we call that the calibration. The ability to observe others, that's part 2 of the book. We've covered all these chapters. A is the adapting and aligning your style. And now we're into the restructuring how you do things, whether it's processes, systems, behaviors, change, transformation, and so on. So when you do your Lisa, you'll get your short report. It's multiple pages, and if you want to get more information, you'll have the opportunity to do that. All right. So watch for that on biqorg.com/Lisa. All right. Let's jump into today's topic. All right. So transformation, it's a hot topic for all of us, and you've probably done some of the things that you're going to see here. Hopefully, not too many of the mistakes, but some reality checking before we get started. So we all get excited about transformation, change, whatever language you want to use. This is a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's not a pill that you can take and magically get transformed. We know it takes time. So we're going to talk about that today. So a lot of organizations, they get excited about that. Maybe it's a rebranding or reorganizing the org chart, moving people around. All of these things, we see it often fail. And Some of this goes way back, and I've shared some of those stories. When computers were first launched, and the language that was used was, we're going to change the way you do things, and the resistance was very high. It wasn't until we understood the psychology and the neuroscience of introducing change that we remove those words that create the judgment and the fight and flight mode almost in most people, that we realize that, hey, you can't do that. You need to do things in small pieces. We set up a usability lab. We would monitor people's behavior as they use the systems and phase it out in stages. And it's not just to test the software. Yes, we do that for software to ensure it's all working properly. But when you do it with people, it's just as important, because you get those one or two successes. You get the raving fans early. Other people then want to get on board and try the same tools. They get excited by other people's excitement. So it's important to understand that this isn't just about rolling out how you roll out new software. It's about how you roll out change and transformation within your team or organization. It doesn't matter whether you have one person on your team or 1,000 people on your team. The method is still the same. Okay, so it's about behavior intelligence, and we've talked about how behavior intelligence is the foundation to leadership intelligence. AccuMatch is our premier behavior map, if you like, and the course methodology that we're launching as a gateway to transition leaders to that premier level of leadership intelligence. So if you're interested, do reach out and let us know. All right, so today I'm just going to do 4. I know past weeks have always been 6. I thought I'd break it up. It was getting too much of a pattern. And if you know me, I hate patterns, so I need to break the mold. But the reality is, this is a simple one. So we're going to talk about the first principle. It's not a moment in time, it's a pattern, okay? It sounds obvious, but we've seen it too many times. Organizations come in, they have these big launches, announcements. They've been keeping quiet about it for a long time, which is the other worst mistake that you could do, right? As we've seen in the past few decades, we get these teasers about what's coming from developers, from organizations. They kind of deliberately leak out information to get people interested and excited. You need to remember that, the quick hit is going to almost always be first hit the people's amygdala, and will go fight and flight immediately because of the uncertainty with that quick announcement. So you need to remember that you're dealing with the psychology and the behavior of how people take that information, right? So true transformation emerges from repetition. You've heard me also talk about that. Practice, practice, practice. This is really a revisit of our neurology, the neuroscience of neural networks and the myelination sheath, the sheath around that. I won't go into all the neuroscience side of things. You can look that up. But basically, we're really taking something, baby steps. It's like learning to brush your teeth for the first time, right? It's going to take lots of practice, but sticking with that repetition is the thing that gets you into automatic unconscious patterns. So that's what we're really talking about. It's developing those habits, or we call them habits, but they're actually, what is a habit? It's a unconscious trigger response event. So you get triggered, you have an automatic unconscious behavior that is pre-programmed. It happens without even you realizing that it's taking place. It's just instantaneous and it's fast. So that's why, we talk about it as creating superhighways, right? If the first time you try something new and you're doing that with your people, if you introduce the whole thing in one shot, it's going to be difficult for them to take all that in. But if you allow small tracks to take place, walking back and forth, developing it into a road, developing it into a highway, you can build it into a superhighway. So I hope you followed how I switched mindset in that. All right. So it's not about just a workshop or a launch. You need to think in terms of the patterns that you will put in place to support the change that is taking effect. So they are building blocks of culture, system, strategy. You need to work on that. Build things into your launch that are deliberately encouraging repetition, right? Pick one thing and do it well, because when you do that, then you start to train people to be comfortable with the process of change, the movement forward, if you like, that they get with you. Okay. So assemble cross-functional teams. This is a quick exercise that you can do. List the desired outcomes, but list them in terms of the behaviors that you want to change, right? Why do I talk about that? If you want an outcome to happen, if you want a KPI to happen the right way, right, you can't just put systems in place. You got to back up and look at the behavior that is going to get that KPI. So it's about the measuring and putting in place, and you've got to measure those behavioral changes. Most of the time people just measure the output, the KPIs. They don't look at the behavioral steps that need to take place. So map it out. It takes time, so give yourself, we always say, give yourself a minimum of 12 weeks. Any program that I run has to be at least 12 weeks to get that one thing done really well. So just keep that in mind. And we often talk about it as 3, 6, 12. The first 12 weeks is that 3 months, right? Intensive. Then you can't just stop. So you need the next 6 to make sure that you're still measuring it, you're still giving it attention, and it maintains it and cements it, okay? And the 12 is just another 12 months of making sure that there is no regression, because our brain still has the old habits in neural pathways that are less active, but sometimes you get triggered into those. The example is driving to work. Okay, maybe you've been driving the same route over and over again. Something has changed. You've decided to take a different route. Maybe there's a new highway. And so you've been using the new highway over and over again. And then one day you get to that intersection and you're not even aware of it. Something distracted you and your brain just went back automatically on the old road. You go, oh my God, what happened? Right? So that's the type of thing that the reason you have to do the sustainability and repetition to allow things to take place. Okay. Pick one behavior, make it visible and scale it, right? Don't scale first, right? So we'll talk about that right here. So retail chain wanted to improve customer service. We picked one thing instead of all these education and courses and all these things. We just asked everybody to do one thing every day. Whenever a customer comes into the store, smile and say welcome, right? That's it, right? The success from that, the net promoter score went up significantly. The people were coming in more into that store, that location, that retail chain because of the experience that was developed from that. So that's that one thing. So my point is you need to pick something small, okay, and then you can add to it. So after that first win, they were able to introduce something else and something else. It was the follow-up or the on the way out greetings. So you could add a lot more things and people go, yeah, I like that one. We did really well. There were some champions in that and so on. So remember that you can scale when you build slowly, all right? And that's important to remember. Right? And it's the neuroscience again. The brain needs little wins. We grew up with the eat a frog in the morning, or the tackle the big rocks first. And the reality of neuroscience is you need those little wins because your brain goes, yeah, you can do it, right? And so every time you're tackling something big, go and get some little wins that give you the energy and momentum to tackle the big things. Know your endorphin levels, whether it's up in the morning or in the afternoon. Maybe you're flat in the afternoon and you need to switch what you're working on in order to re-energize. So think about that, not just in yourself. That's what the whole course process is about, understanding yourself first so you can observe it in others. But what we're really talking about is understanding how others receive information so that you can scale those steps, right? And we're building, really what we're talking about is building muscle memory. We get rewarded when we have good change. So I like change. It actually becomes something that we embrace rather than fear, right? And fear comes from the I don't know translates to uncertainty, and fear and the amygdala, fight and flight, all of that is tied to it, right? And visibility is your amplifier, right? So make it visible, reward people, recognize when it's being done, put champions in place, and make it so that it's not just done behind closed doors or a need to know situation. Being transparent is your best policy in a lot of this stuff because it energizes people. Mhm. Principle 3, too much can create resistance. Why? It's called overwhelm. Right? That's a label that we throw out, and I hate labels, so we unpack that and you go, well, what is that? Well, let's take a look at this example. Tech firm ran simultaneous initiatives. It was a new CRM, revamped performance reviews, new methodologies, all of that. The team couldn't figure out which thing they were meant to focus on, and so they didn't focus on anything, and nothing really succeeded. None of those initiatives were successful. They all had to be pulled back and restructured and done individually, one at a time. So what happened? Right? We also need to consider the cognitive bandwidth that people have, right? And when people are busy, adding many things to their already busy lifestyle or their busy work style, right? The KPIs that they need to track, the targets that they need to hit, etc., and you want me to change this, and that. It's not going to happen, right? So remember the bandwidth of people, and it's different for different people, different roles, etc. So you need to respect that. If you want to pick the lowest common denominator as a starting point, that's a great place to start. Reduce it to the minimum that people can take on easily, right? And introduce those slowly. The change window is a good approach. Always create a safety, right? Almost like a dome to protect a change for a period of time without introducing yet another change on top of it. Okay, so we recommend the 12-week cycle. So allow each initiative at least a 3-month period. Sometimes it needs to go longer if you have failed in some of the steps that were required to make sure that it succeeds, right? So there's pre-announcement, there is the announcement, the launch, the tracking, the training, the onboarding, the stabilization that's required to do that, right? So plan for it, plan for the timeline, think about those things as, you're dealing with people. This isn't, even a computer is going to have bandwidth issues if you're running too many processes. Doesn't your computer slow down? Yeah, it does, because it has a limited bandwidth. It's either CPU or it's memory, right? So you need to pay attention to all of these things. Principle 4, we've touched on this, but just more important to mention again, sustainability is much more important than speed, right? Company-wide failed launch, company-wide software rollout, right? Users were onboarded quickly. There is no embedding period into the processes, checking the impact on different areas. You've heard me talk about mapping your processes. This is what that is. You need to look at the process and look how people interact, their behavior at different stages within the process, and what technology is applied at each of those processes. It's not just let's go with it. You can't wing that sort of stuff. And a lot of us can't figure out why. It's just because you created it doesn't mean other people will assimilate it, I think is the word that I like to use, as quickly as you did. You forget that when you develop something, you've gone through a journey of exploration, curiosity, checking, testing, trying, what worked, what didn't work. You've gone through a whole evolution. Usually, our last software that we're releasing took 12 months to get it to where it is. We've gone through a huge development journey. It hurts people's brain to receive all of that quickly, right? So you need to phase it, right? Or you need to check the process, make sure every step is being measured properly and is easy for people to look at, right? So keep that in mind. It's important. So embed change into your system. Look at your processes, look at the behaviors, weave those into that, and measure it, right? Latest software that we're releasing, we will be measuring how long people take at different steps within the system, so that we can see where the bottlenecks are, where people get stuck or they don't finish, and so on. How long does it actually take somebody to go from start to finish? All of this information, is behind the scene. It's not anything personal. It's just catching time, making systems efficient for people, right? And we're looking at the behavior that is impacted by the system, right? I keep talking about that. In fact, the cause methodology, in the next few months, you'll see how we apply that on the business intelligence side of running a smooth operation. It's still the same 4 letters, and I'll cover that in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for those announcements. All right. To sustain it, it's got the 90 days there, which is your 12 weeks, the behavior steward, the rewards. Make sure you do that. So it's just really 4 steps, right? What's the pattern? Pick one, right? Make sure it's simple, it's easy, so that you can make it visible and successful quickly with a lot of people. Remember the bandwidth question. Yes. Okay, you might get excited that you had 1 win and you suddenly want to do 10. Don't resist the temptation. Just keep at the pace and remember the pace. Yes, you might be able to increase the pace a little bit down the road, but you will hit that bandwidth ceiling. So keep that in mind. And sustainability, you got to do the repetition. You can't, it's not just the repetition, but allowing enough time, protect that window that I talked about, right? Good examples of success stories, the hospital improved patient safety significantly, right? Daily retrospective commits allowed the software company to deliver more quickly solutions. Global NGO changed their feedback. Each one succeeded by mastering just that one behavior. This is just one thing, right? Okay, make sure you pick that up. It's not a rollout of a whole bunch of systems throughout the whole hospital. It was just one thing, okay? And that one thing had that impact. And then you could add another and another, right? So the right mindset, right? We need to shift our thinking from the fear of change, and it's actually the fear of resistance, right? And you need to understand what happened, what caused the resistance, instead of shying away and going, oh my God, here we go. Well, I don't know if anybody's going to adopt this. I talked about this a few weeks ago as well, organizations signing up for products and then, doing some training and getting back to being busy in their day-to-day and wondering why they're paying all this money for the software that don't get used. And so they go through another training and they go through another training, but the problem isn't the training or the software, right? The issue is the sustainability, the application of that. So get familiar with the behavior that you are dealing with, right? So you can identify little things, amplify them, and sustain them, and get the operational success you're looking for. Right. Common pitfalls, I've touched on a lot of those. Too many initiatives at the same time. Celebrating the launch instead of celebrating the sustainability 12 months later. Is it still there? Is it working? Right? The behaviors, the invisible, make it visible. Show people how it's working, what's happening, what successes, how they benefit too, right? So don't forget that. We've talked about that in previous workshops. So your challenge, if you like, over the next few weeks, right? Take on one thing, design the launch, protect that window, conduct the resistance audit, check where it's getting stuck, etc., and then celebrate those wins with everybody. So think about it. What transformation Have you tried to force too fast? What happened, right? Don't look at blaming just the system, blame your rollout, right? We've talked about don't blame the people. First, look at the system. Is it empowering or is it creating friction? We've talked about that. Now we're talking about the timeline. Have you considered how people receive information? What happened, right? So pick one, right? Which single behavior in your organization could create the biggest impact, right? On improving your culture, your leadership, your camaraderie, whatever it is, your KPIs, your net promoter score. Pick one, right? Where are those areas where you're creating overwhelm, right? And dial it back, okay? Every time you find you're hitting that ceiling, you might have to dial it back, right? It's common, right? I know people get really upset, the accounting department, the marketing team, when deliverables get delayed. Sometimes we delay them on purpose to make sure that sustainability is going to work and it's not going to get hit with overwhelm and resistance out of the gate. All right, so before next week, take it on. Pick one so that you can start sharing with us what's happening and so on. So just making sure we're on time here. And next week, week 8, right, is coming up. So behavior is the core of organizational excellence, how behavior converts data into collective insights, building intelligent systems, and so on. So make sure you join us. If you haven't registered, please register. It's biqworld.com/events. I think I mentioned that earlier. All right. So your key takeaways, you can read those. When we run these in person in workshops, there is a lot of tools that we also provide. I know I don't talk about that in a lot of these sessions, but that's why this is a quick introduction to those topics. You can go and do it yourself if you like. Just grab the book. Again, the book is online on Amazon and soon on our website, the Leadership Intelligence Handbook. All right, so you can do that. And that's it. If you have questions, we'll watch for them. As usual, thank you for joining. I hope you will partake in one of those upcoming opportunities. The LISA assessment, do jump on. It just takes 5 minutes for you to get your calibration score so that you can start your course journey of leadership intelligence and ultimately get to the AccuMatch behavior intelligence, where you go deeper at that higher level of knowledge and information. So, thank you and see you next week.